Well, I looked at the latest thing from Ben Emlyn-Jones. I haven't been watching much of his stuff lately, especially his Trump nonsense. But this I thought was worth commenting on, so I'll comment on it. And we'll see how we go with this. This is his latest video. I'll leave a link to this below so you can watch this in its entirety if you fancy a bit of a chuckle. Right, here we go.
So we can have a better idea. Well, of course, the NASA know what they are. There's that famous...
Well, if NASA knew what they were, this is talking about UFOs, obviously, the guy wouldn't be saying, OK, well, let's have a look at these from a scientific point of view to see if we can find out what they are, if they knew what they were. Would they?
There's that famous incident, isn't there, where the spatial discovery, it's Blaha, the pilot, he says, Houston, this is Discovery, we've got the alien spacecraft under observance. That was picked up by a radio ham.
Yeah, it's funny how he's quite happy to accept radio hams can pick up that sort of traffic. But when he's on the Apollo defectives, he's not happy at all that radio hams can pick up the Apollo astronauts. Anyway, let's have a look at this. This actually did happen. So if we go to this one here, and I'll leave a link to this below as well. Let's just... This was in 1989, and he's got the name of the chap right. Now, we still have the alien spacecraft under observance. Now, that doesn't, of course, mean it's an alien spacecraft, does it? It just means it's a. It just means it's a spacecraft of unknown origin that they can see. It's probably a Russian spacecraft because this was a classified mission. Discovery was up doing something for the NSA. That's what all the classified missions were about. The Russians were keeping an eye on them to see what they were doing. A friend of mine went to live in America. Live in Florida, and he got a green card for America. It was actually like a little beige credit card, and written on it was resident alien. So the Americans use the term alien for anything non-American. I know for a fact my mate does not come from outer space. So he's got a resident alien card, and I think he's actually got citizenship for the United States now. But all that means is that it's not an American spacecraft. It doesn't mean it's interstellar visitors. So yeah. Okay. Now let's just move on to the next clip. Right. Let's see what more pearls of wisdom we have here from Mr. Jones.
The skeptics, as I said, the skeptics, most of them are doubling down, as you saw from that CSI article, and most of them will double down for as long as they possibly can.
Why exactly? Because the American government have said there's no evidence that the UFOs are extraterrestrial. Why would the skeptics be doubling down?
They will. I think there's some that might be in such denial that even if the White House lawn landing happens, they'll say it's a bouncy castle.
No, well, if the White House lawn landing happens, I'd say, good heavens, look, they've finally done it. They've landed on the White House lawn. Now, now, this is not going to make me immediately think that 9/11, the 9/11 was a conspiracy. It really was a directed energy weapon, powered by free energy. Now, in Ben's head, all this stuff is lumped together. If someone showed me evidence, actual real evidence of ET visiting this planet, I would say, well, okay, fair enough. That's all I've ever said. I'm looking for evidence. Show me some evidence. I've never seen any. Now, if someone showed me some evidence, I'll say, okay, that's evidence of ET visiting the planet. That's not going to change my opinion on 9/11, being exactly as the history books tell us it was. Or the moon landing. I'm not going to think, blimey, NASA couldn't have gone to the moon. It's ludicrous. But in Ben's head, all this stuff is lumped together. Roswell, free energy, the moon NASA faking the moon landing, 9/11. You see, the thing is, if Roswell was a balloon, then there's no such thing as free energy. Then his 9/11 conspiracy goes out of the window. All this, in his mind, is lumped together. But most people don't lump all that stuff together in their heads. I don't look at all that stuff together. You know, I know, I'm firmly convinced, I watched it, that 9/11 happened exactly as the history books tell us. You know, suddenly someone producing evidence of extraterrestrial visitation is not going to change that opinion. I've seen overwhelming evidence for NASA landing on the moon. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, all those other guys landing on the moon. You know, someone presenting evidence of extraterrestrial visitation is not going to change that opinion. Yeah, in Ben's mind, all this is lumped together. So if someone says, here's evidence of extraterrestrial visitation, he'll say, there you go, told you 9/11 was brought down by a free energy weapon, directed energy weapon, powered by free energy, told you NASA's never been to the moon, told you there's Bigfoot, told you there's ghosts. All this is lumped together in his head. And that's why I've actually asked him this question. You know, if Donald Trump said to you, Roswell was the crash of a mogul balloon, would you believe it? And he said no. So Ben Emlyn-Jones is the one here that's in serious denial. Really, to the extent that I think he could be delusional. There could be some sort of mental health issue going on here. To be able, you know, most people are capable of critical thinking. Most people would not lump all that stuff together. He seems incapable of looking at individual events and making a judgment about individual events. It's all lumped together. If one's true, they're all true in Ben's head. And I think all of the skeptics, as far as I know, have only ever said the same thing that I'm saying, and that's, you know, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Show me some evidence, and I'll be happy to accept it. You know, Ben Emlyn-Jones desperately wants all this conspiracy claptrap to be true. I don't desperately want it to be untrue. I'm just saying, show me the evidence. I'm not seeing any evidence, so I don't think it's true. But it's not going to have some sort of a crushing effect on my life if I find out that there is evidence of extraterrestrials visiting the planet. You know, I'm not going to go, wow, you know, Armstrong never walked on the moon. Those buildings in New York were brought down by a free energy powered directed energy weapon. I mean, it's not ludicrous. It's nonsense. Okay, let's see what else he's got to say.
They will literally deny reality.
And that's precisely what you would be doing, Ben. Or it's what you are doing, because the evidence for Roswell being a crash of a mogul balloon is overwhelming. The evidence for 9/11 being exactly as the history books tell us is overwhelming. I was watching it all on live TV. You know, the evidence for the NASA moon landing is overwhelming. You know, there's no evidence of the Queen of England being a shape-shifting lizard from outer space. There's no evidence of a free energy powered directed energy weapon being used at 9/11. There's no evidence Roswell was the crash of an ET craft. The American government have said they don't have any evidence of ET visitation. That tells us they don't have any material from Roswell. An ET craft has never crashed anywhere on Earth. They've got no biological samples. They've got no technological samples. That's what that tells us. They have no evidence of these UFOs being ET.
Others, though, I think will come over. Sam Harris is not going to be the only one. The problem is, I think...
I've no idea who Sam Harris is, but I'm guessing he's a skeptic, but so what, you know? I mean, people have different opinions. That's meaningless.
This is something completely new. This new ufology. It's something humanity's never had to deal with before. It's something no one's ever had to deal with, except like a minority of people who are what they call, what was the word they used? Enthusiasts.
Yeah, well, that's what you are, Ben. You're not researchers. You are enthusiasts. You know, you desperately want all this stuff to be true. And I can't remember if I've said in this video that I don't desperately want this to be untrue. You know, if you show me some evidence, I'll say fair enough, there's evidence for it. It's not going to have a huge impact on my life. You know, I don't desperately want this to be untrue. I'm just pointing out all the things that people say to support these science fiction stories and how nonsensical they are.
The general population is now going to have to come to terms with all this.
The general population couldn't care less, man. They really couldn't.
People like you and me, I assume most of you watching this are kind of loonies or tinfoil hatters like me, we are going to have to play a leadership role.
Yes, I'm afraid Ben's either changed his prescription or he's forgotten to take his Thorazine. He really sees himself as some sort of prophet here. He really thinks he's going to have to take some sort of leadership role.
Because people are going to look to us to guide them.
Can you imagine being guided by Ben Emlyn-Jones? Really? I mean, the Queen of England is a shape-shifting lizard. Take my word for it. Roswell was the crash of an alien spacecraft. 9/11, that was a directed energy weapon powered by free energy, and that was as a result of the Roswell crash. They found the way of generating free energy from the power system on the Roswell craft. Armstrong, none of the Apollo guys ever walked on the moon. Ghosts are real. And Bigfoot is not some clown in a gorilla suit. It's real. That is the sort of guidance you're going to get from Ben Emlyn-Jones.
Because of our experience and because of the fact we've already come to grips with this, and we're going to have to, that's something we're going to have to deal with as well. The skeptics are going to go through, I think, the biggest upheaval of their entire...
Sorry.
Their entire movement. It's basically going to be the end of their movement because their entire raison d'etre is to disprove these things.
No, I don't think so. I think I'm not a member of any skeptic movement, but I think skeptics generally just say, show me the evidence. You know, James Randi, that's all he ever said. Show me the evidence. You know, if you can show me the evidence that ghosts are real, I'll give you $1 million. It's a pretty good incentive, isn't it, for someone producing a ghost? Never happened. People like Mick West and Thunderfoot are smart guys, and they look at it and they'll give an opinion on it. And Mick West recently backed up his opinion with a very simple bit of trigonometry, simple calculation. Now the numbers don't lie. You know, so he's not screaming that they're wrong. What he's saying is the numbers on the head-up display don't add up to what they're saying. The numbers on the display say the object is not moving very fast and it's high in the air. That's not what the pilots are describing. That's what Mick West says. That's why he's got UFOs explained ? I think he's right. But when you look at the skeptics, so you look at Mick West and you look at Thunderfoot, I'm not really aware of a great deal of skeptics, but these two guys I've looked at a bit of, you know, from time to time. They're very smart guys. When you look at the conspiracy, the woo-woos, the conspiracy guys, the woo-woos, they're really not very smart guys. They're people like Ben Emlyn-Jones, Colin Wolford. They're Tony Topping. You know, they're really not very smart guys, and yeah, I think that in itself speaks volumes. But certainly I can't imagine any skeptics getting upset over what the Pentagon, what they've said. You know, they said there's no evidence any of this stuff is extraterrestrial. So, you know, why would skeptics be upset? Even if they said there was evidence, why would they be upset? Because they've only ever asked for evidence, as far as I know. You see, Ben would be upset. I think that's what it's all about, because in his head, this is all clumped together. This conspirasphere, there's all that stuff is in that sphere. You know, the Queen of England's a shape-shifting lizard from outer space. Outer space. Apollo never went to the moon. 9/11 was a directed free energy powered weapon. Roswell was the crash of a spacecraft. You know, it's all in that little sphere in his head, between his ears. That's why he would never accept anybody, even Trump, telling him that Roswell was the crash of a balloon. Because if you imagine that sphere is an orange and you take one little segment out of that orange, then the rest of it starts to crumble, doesn't it? You know, because if there's no Roswell crash, there's no free energy. So 9/11 couldn't have been a directed energy weapon powered by free energy, could it? Apollo is something different, but he lumps all this together. Most people are capable of critical thinking. Most people don't lump all that stuff together. And as I've said, you know, if there was evidence of ET visitation, it's not going to change my opinion about 9/11 or 7/7 or the NASA moon landing. I just don't understand these conspiracy people and the way their thinking works. Well, it probably doesn't, does it? Otherwise they wouldn't think like that.
And this is going to be, excuse me, there's other things apart from UFOs, of course. I mean, there's ghosts and there's other things, but it's a domino. It's going to domino out into other areas, because once the cultural taboo is evaporated.
Yeah, and he's going to go on to mention Bigfoot. Well, he's mentioned ghosts already, but see, he's lumping all this together. He's saying, okay, if people are going to take UFOs seriously, then they're going to have to take ghosts seriously and Bigfoot seriously. That makes no sense whatsoever. Why would you? Why would you even consider that sort of thing?
Once the idea that it's just wrong psychologically and socially to deal with these things is no longer the case, and it becomes acceptable culturally and psychologically, at that moment there's going to be similar revelations in other areas. Bigfoot, for example, there's going to be a lot more interest in Bigfoot, I think. And a lot of the evidence that's been rejected will be taken seriously.
No, I don't think so. I think most people are a little bit smarter than that, to be honest.
The same with ghosts and things like that. So this is, to quote Chris Carter, the author, not the creator of X-Files, a book author. This is the fall of the House of Skeptic. It's going to be difficult for these people.
The fall of the House of Skeptic. Yeah. Well, what? Because the leak from what's going to be released by the Pentagon next week, or is it next week or the week after, says there is no evidence that UFOs are extraterrestrial. He's talking as though they've said the opposite, that they are extraterrestrial, isn't he? I think in his head that's what they've said, but they're saying there is no evidence that these things are extraterrestrial. And as I've said previously, even if they said there was evidence that it was extraterrestrial, the skeptics are quite capable of... the skeptics are going to say, well, crikey, there you go. We've been asking for evidence. There it is. It's happening. It certainly shouldn't flow on to all these other ridiculous conspiracy theories. Because one holds water, the others must hold water. That's nonsense. And critical thinking people will be fully aware of that. And
they are going to go... It's going to be traumatic. I don't bear them any ill will. I have friends who are skeptics.
See, he's got very much an us and them mentality, hasn't he? I don't bear them any ill will. Well, why would you? All they're asking for is some evidence, isn't it?
Wish them all the best, and just to let you know, guys, I at least am here if you need me.
Well, I'm sure you'll understand if I don't find that terribly comforting, Ben. Yeah, so I go and sit on Ben's knee and he'll say, you know, the Queen of England really is a shape-shifting lizard from outer space, you know. And I go, really? Roswell really was the crash of an alien spacecraft. Yeah? NASA never put men on the moon. And the 9/11 towers, you know, they were brought down by a directed energy weapon powered by free energy that was developed from the crash of the flying saucer at Roswell. Oh, really, Ben? Wow. Revelations indeed.
Not everyone on my side is going to be as magnanimous as I am. Some of them are going to say, "Suck it up, losers." I'm not going to.
Yeah, well, why exactly?
Say that.
Why he's talking? He's talking as though they've said ETs here. You know, why has the skeptics? Why have the skeptics lost suddenly? I don't understand this at all. If anyone's lost, it's the woo-woos, because they've said there's no evidence that any of this stuff is ET.
You can always turn to me for guidance if you need it.
Yeah, NASA never put anyone on the moon. The Queen of England's a shape-shifting lizard from outer space. Space Roswell was a crash of a flying saucer. 9/11 was the directed energy weapon powered by free energy. You'd be fed a diet of absolute claptrap. Turning to Ben Emlyn-Jones for guidance, but he really does see himself as some sort of prophet, doesn't he? He really does. And to clump all that together in his head and to actually seriously believe all that bloody nonsense and believe that, you know, the skeptics are all going to be upset and they're going to turn to people like him for guidance, honestly, I think that's seriously delusional. Seriously delusional, to the point that, you know, if you're not taking any medication, Ben, I think you should probably get yourself checked out, mate.
So, what a world we're going through, eh? What a strange turn of events that is happening right now.
Well, I don't know what world you live in, Ben, but I can't. Business as usual where I am. I can't say I've noticed very much at all. All I've noticed is a couple of people commenting on the videos that were released 3 or 4 years ago, and a new one, or a new video of the sun setting in infrared. You know, got no idea what you're talking about.
To the point where I can't even turn my back on the camera before some new revelation comes around, which I have to make another video about.
Can't say I've seen any of these revelations, to be perfectly honest.
Who knows? I do wonder, actually, what's going to happen with...
Perhaps you could leave a comment below if you know what revelations he's talking about.
The G7. I mean, is there going to be...
Oh, God, can you imagine the G7? They're not going to be remotely interested in UFOs. Not remotely interested.
Is something going to be said about this at the G7? I don't know. You see, Boris, I don't know yet. As I said in the last video, I don't know yet whether Boris has broken out of his chain.
And just to give you another example of how how remote from reality Ben Emlyn-Jones is, he actually thought that Boris Johnson's family had been kidnapped and Boris was being coerced into doing whatever he was doing or not doing whatever he was doing in the UK, and he actually sent him a copy of the SAS rescuing the hostages from the Iranian embassy, wasn't it? Who dares wins or something like that. He said to give him a clue about getting his family rescued. I mean, this is seriously delusional stuff. Absolute nonsense. It's a funny world between those two headphone pads, that's for sure. It certainly has nothing whatsoever to do with reality.
Or not. Whether this is talked about or not will depend on that. As I said about the lockdown ending, it's going to be a test, but we'll see. But the G7 summit's going on now, so I'll be back in front of the camera.
Yeah, okay. He can't keep away from the camera, can he? Have you noticed that whenever he does videos and he comments on my stuff, we see him and he reads it, and yet when I do comments about his stuff, you see him making the comments. He just cannot keep away from that camera. Now, there is one other thing I wanted to point out here, and that's these things here, these T-shirts here. And he's saying that the woos should all be wearing these told you so t-shirts. Now, I can understand them wearing them if the American government had said, yeah, okay, there is evidence that these UFOs are extraterrestrial, but that's not what they're saying. I'm sure he's got it the wrong way round in his head. You know, they've said there's no evidence, and he's going, well, I told you, there is evidence, see? Because really, it's the skeptics that should be wearing these. You know, there is no evidence of UFOs being extraterrestrial. Told you so. There you go. Even this guy here, I mean, really, Bob Lazar? Does anyone with an IQ bigger than their shoe size take this guy seriously? So yeah, I'm really not sure what that's all about. But take my word for it, Ben. The world of skeptics is not going to be inconsolable because the Pentagon has said there's no evidence that the UFOs are extraterrestrial. This whole video makes no sense whatsoever. It obviously only makes sense in Ben world. It doesn't make any kind of sense whatsoever in the real world. And I think all this stuff is going to fizzle out really quickly. I think you're completely and utterly wrong about all of this stuff. It will just fizzle out. You know, every 6 months they'll release a report saying there's no evidence that the UFOs are extraterrestrial. And you know, people will get bored with it, and that'll be that. Certainly, no one's going to have their interest piqued in Bigfoot or ghosts, or the Queen being a lizard, you know, or 9/11 or any of this other conspiracy claptrap. All right. Well, as always, if you've struggled through this video all the way to here, thank you very much for watching, and maybe I'll catch you again.